So what is my personal training and nutrition plan going to be in 2023? This is what I'm going to be covering in today's episode of the Company Podcast, because I've got a strong guess that one of the reasons you might be listening to this podcast is to learn how do I personally stay in shape the way I do every week, month to month, year round, and have done for the last 24, 25 years now. This year in particular is a pivotal moment in my life, I suppose, because I'm coming into my 40th year. I'm 40 in September. But it changes nothing with regards to my own personal standards and where I want to be in terms of how I look, how I feel, and by default, of course, how I want to perform this year. So what I want to break down in this episode is exactly what I'm going to be doing with my training, what I'm going to be doing with my food, how I'm going to incorporate that into my personal, professional, and social lifestyle. I'm going to be breaking down key principles, things also that I'm not going to stress about, and really simplifying maybe some tips, what I believe you could do also if you have aspirations to be, consistent also with your health, fitness, and body goals. And a lot of the principles I'm going to share with you are implemented by our Built to Last clientele as well, who also have aspirations to be in shape year round. As I've preached about in so many of these podcasts, and if you follow my content for quite a long time now, I'm all about lasting change and consistency week to week, year round. So to kick off, that's exactly what I'm going to be focusing on. Before I go into my weekly structure, what I'm going to do with my food, and obviously some key takeaways and principles, before I evaluate what I'm going to be doing with my training, my nutrition, you first and foremost have to get very, very clear, or I have to get very, very clear, what is my goal and why? And then you reverse engineer what you need to do with your training, with your nutrition. Exactly the same, I'm sure, if you're a business owner or you work in a big company, you're going to have targets, but you have to have a clear roadmap of what's the system, what's the processes, what the inputs are going to take you there. Okay, but you need an outcome, you need a target in the first place. So my goal, very, very simple, and I shared this on social media not too long ago, is to be in shape still at the end of the year. I want to be in shape every single week, every month, without question. And that doesn't mean I need to be boring, but I never want to be off it, as I've said many, many times before. My goal is to be in shape every week of this year. And at the time this is being broadcasted, this particular episode, I think it's the third week in January, but this will be particularly relevant across the year also, all right? So my goal is to be in shape all year round. Why? And you would have maybe heard me talk about this on previous episodes, because I'm fully aware of the consequences if I'm not. I'm sure if you listen to this, you have professional targets, career targets, just personal growth targets as a whole. And the key thing you need to do when you're setting, your health and fitness goal is to relate your health and fitness goal to the things you value most. So for me, by me being in shape at the end of the year and every week throughout the year, I know that if that doesn't happen, that's going to impact my business growth, my career growth, my relationship, my friendships. Simply put, my ability to get an awful lot done or not. Okay, if I'm fit, strong, healthy, confident, energized, more importantly, I know I'm going to achieve significantly more every single week within the 168 hours we have available, minus the time we sleep, of course. So I before I break down what is the inputs in terms of my training and nutrition, I need to evaluate first and foremost what is needed to achieve my goals, and the big one for me is energy. Okay, you can't give what you don't have. So in relation to my goal, that's the big why. I need energy because there are people who need me in my life, full of energy, full of great health, full of confidence, full of strength. And if I drop my standards and don't hit this goal, then it's going to impact all of my other goals from there. Okay. So in terms of a weekly structure with training, it's very, very similar to last year, if I'm honest. Again, it might sound a bit monotonous and boring, but one of the reasons people fail with their health and fitness goals and are not consistent is they try and overcomplicate their routine, the structure of their training in particular. I think every single person who has signed up to the Built to Last program in the last few years, the number one thing they are craving, first and foremost, is structure. Structure creates freedom with your social lifestyle. Structure creates consistency, it creates discipline, and it gives you a more predictable route to the outcome that you're trying to achieve, okay? But in terms of our weekly training structure, I'm going to lift 4 weight sessions per week. In an ideal week, I like to lift a Monday, a Tuesday, a Thursday, and a Saturday, but you have to be malleable. You have to be malleable. You know, over a 52-week period, I know there are going to be some weeks I'm on holiday, I'm traveling, might have a personal challenge, a curveball, but one way or another, I'll get 4 weight sessions in. If, for whatever reason, I was on back-to-back planes and it just genuinely wasn't practical to a given week, then as an absolute minimum, I would lift 2 to 3. And this is why I think it's so important if you're an entrepreneur, business owner, or someone who has a hell of a lot to do during a week, you should be training full body, because the beauty of the full body training, as I've said in the previous episode, if you can't get those 4 or 5 sessions in, whatever it is that you are aspiring to do, then full body is, you're still going to hit your whole body if you have to have less sessions. But as a whole, I want to get 4 sessions in every week. Okay? To complement my weight sessions, I've made a non-negotiable that this year I'm going to do 1 Pilates session every week without question. Pilates for me, I'll be honest, like my partner Gabby, she has 2 studios, a global education program. She's the best in the business at what she does. She was the person that introduced me into Pilates and the benefits of that. I don't exactly really enjoy it, but the benefits are absolutely phenomenal. Sometimes in life, you have to do the things you don't really enjoy for the benefits that the things you don't enjoy bring. And I know with Pilates, I lift more, I move better, I run better, I simply feel more balanced. I prevent more injuries. It makes me calm, relaxed, which as an intense person, is pivotal. But it really does complement all the other aspects of my training. And most importantly with Pilates, it looks after your spine. And the harsh reality is this: if you love going to the gym, love lifting weights, you have to protect your spine. And I think nothing does that more than Pilates. It is that powerful, okay? So I'm going to do a Pilates session once a week. Then in terms of my cardiovascular work, obviously I want a strong heart, I want to be fit, I want to be mentally focused, I want to be physically energized. Like, energy is such a high value for me because it allows me to outwork competitors, it allows me to get more done in less time, and it allows me to bring my best energy to my personal and professional relationships and commitments. So for me, how do I do that? I'll either do a boxing session. I love to do it on a Friday in particular. It's like the end of the week. Obviously, it's really fantastic for your physical fitness, but also it tests your mental capabilities as well, especially, because I'm always learning with that. I'll either do a boxing, as you burn an enormous amount of calories, gets me really fit, or if for whatever reason, due to logistics or where I was in the world, if I can't get a boxing session in, I'll do a really hard cardio session where I'm really trying to get my heart rate high, exhaust myself and really push my mental and physical capabilities. All right, so 4 weight sessions, 1 Pilates, and boxing and/or hard cardio. Now, also depending on my time within a given weight session, there are some sessions, depending on how fit or not I felt or what that given week was like, I may also add additional 10-minute bouts of cardio after some weight sessions. Just to, again, top up my physical fitness. But the way I structure weight sessions for myself and clients, there's a hell of a lot of extended sets. So things such as upper body, lower body supersets, same muscle supersets like agonist supersets, trisets, joint sets. So you can be very clever with the way you structure your workouts where you're getting the strength benefits, the muscle benefits, also the cardiovascular benefits, where you can get your heart rate just as high through weight training in a cleverly structured workout as what you can do in cardio, but you're killing two birds in one stone. So you're working your heart rate, you're working your muscles, working your strength, testing your mind, but you're doing it within that same workout weight session. So especially if you can be a little bit time poor sometimes, or your week is a little bit stretched as the year goes on, I strongly advise that if you're trying to get more bang for your buck for your sessions, again, try and make sure you're getting some cardiovascular work within a cleverly structured weight session, okay? And then, so if you break that down, because I want to make this really, really crystal clear with you, 4 weight sessions, 1 Pilates, 1 boxing, and or cardio. So that's, technically speaking, that's taking up six days, all right? I'm someone who likes to move my body every single day, as I'll come on to later in the podcast, because it's like a medicine for me. It's more for my mind. It would take a hell of a lot for me to get out of shape at this stage of my life, because I've been so consistent with my routine and discipline up to now. So for me, I like to move my body most days. So if 6 days sounds like quite a lot in terms of, exercise, maybe ask yourself, how else am I using my time if I've not moved my body in some capacity most days? Because you're going to fill your time up in some capacity, you can take on more work, but it's amazing what 30 to 60 minutes a day of exercise does in terms of your efficiency, your mental focus, and your mood, okay? So that's 6 days. And then what I would typically do on a Sunday, and again, it's not always Sunday, again, my schedule might change. I have an active recovery day, so even on my, in abbreviated terms, solid rest day, I'd go for a long walk or do some light cardio and some mobility, as I'll come on to in a second, okay? And that might be something as simple as like a steady 5K run, nothing too crazy where I'm not really pushing my heart rate, but it's just something where it's moving my heart. And again, it's my daily medicine for my mood that day, because I firmly believe that movement shifts mood, okay? So that's pretty much my actual training routine. But as I said, you need structure, but you need to be malleable. You need to be malleable. If I have some weeks where I'm really, really, really stretched, I don't like to use the word stress, but maybe highly challenged with workload, might be on deadlines for a certain task, might have an event coming up and, my bandwidth is really being tested, might have something personal coming on. I'm malleable, for example, with things like session duration. So even though I may try and lift 3 or 4 sessions or 4 sessions, if an ideal world every single week, if my time is pressed, I will simply do the same sessions, but with less sets. I use common sense principle. If I have maximum time available, I will complete all of the sets that I intend to within a given weight session. So for example, most workouts myself and clients do, we lift 4 sets within every 3 sets, within every weight session. If I was really pressed for time and I could only train for 40 minutes, then I will do 2 work sets. If I was really, really pressed for time, which I've had to do in December just gone, I might just do 1 work set, but I'm still going to feel better for doing it than not doing it at all. So just a little bit of advice on training, if you're trying to mirror what I do, is to avoid this on it, off it mentality and this all or nothing mentality. If you can't always do the perfect hour session, 50-minute session, think less but high quality beats doing nothing. I don't believe anyone is that busy they can't train for 3 to 4 times a week for 20 to 30 minutes within a given week. I genuinely think that when I've stripped clients apart in the rare occasion they said they can't do this, I've stripped their calendar apart, they're disorganized and they're bullshitting themselves and they're prioritizing other people's needs too much at the expense of their own, okay? So you have to be malleable with this, okay? Then other things that I do just to break down outside of my sort of solid session, so to speak, I'll always do anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes mobility before every single session. I would rather take 5 minutes off my lifting time and prioritize 2 to 5 minutes of mobility time if my time is really, really stretched. Because I think if you neglect mobility at the expense of maybe doing extra sets in your weights workouts, you're going to feel stiff, you're going to feel aggravated, and you're lining yourself up for an injury in the near or distant future, okay? So I always make sure I do mobility, because I know if I do mobility, just let my joints breathe, my muscles open up a little bit before I go into a weight session. Even if I had to do less sets in a given session, the less sets are going to be significantly higher quality by doing that few minutes of mobility, especially when you're doing compounds and strength work. All right, so I'll do mobility every single session. Then one thing that I'll also try and do within my week, again, it doesn't always happen due to logistics and time, I'll also try and get a sports massage in any week I possibly can. It just helps, again, release tension, aids recovery, which is so important if you're trying to build a great body and stay in shape and prevent injury year round. Because one of the things that's going to dictate how you look across the year and at the end of the year is how many weeks you can actually stay in the gym. Now, if that's going to be compromised through injury because you've neglected recovery and sleep, as I'll come on to in a second, then you might have a few hardcore weeks, but if the more weeks you have out of the gym across a calendar year, that's going to dramatically impact how much strength muscle you have and the body you're walking around with, okay? So whenever you can get massage, I strongly recommend that too. And look, what supports all of this? And the one thing you always have to have in mind, which isn't necessarily a training, a training workout, so to speak, is walking, is steps. If you're trying to keep your body fat low, if you're trying to keep a healthy mood, mental focus, and keep your emotional state in the empowering position, then you need to factor in walking and steps, okay? The less you move, the less you're going to be able to eat, because your body's going to require less energy. So for me, my steps, I'll typically aim for a weekly target of 70k steps. And because of how hectic my lifestyle is as well, if for whatever reason, sometimes my steps are compromised and they are a little bit lower than usual, that is when I would typically make sure I'm making up for a lower movement with additional cardio after a weight session, for example, or that one hard cardio session. I'll make sure that it is maybe a slightly longer cardio session. So whichever way whichever way I present this to you, I'm getting my daily movement in and weekly movement, more importantly, one way or the other. All right. So just to summarize my actual training routine, in an ideal world, 4 weight sessions, 1 Pilates session, 1 boxing session, preferably, or a really hard cardio session if I don't do boxing. As I said, I may top up and do short additional 5, 10, sometimes 20-minute max cardio after weights, but it's very rare I do that. And I always make sure I'm factoring in my mobility. And as a fundamental thing, I make sure I'm getting my steps in, because just to, again, re-emphasize that and how important it is to move daily and hit a solid weekly step target. You could be having the best training sessions in the world. Okay, you could be doing your cardio really, really hard for 20, 30 minutes. But if you are sitting on your ass too much, week to week, barely moving, it's going to drastically impact the energy you can consume, basically the food quantity you can consume. And for me, that is the biggest reason people fail to stay in shape year round, is they are constantly having to deprive themselves of calories. They constantly feel like they're on a diet because they're not, one, of course, they're not training with enough intent and volume and intensity, but they're not moving enough, okay? So make sure that as a minimum requirement, you're getting your weight sessions in and you've got a solid step target, okay? The other stuff, like I said, Pilates, boxing, maybe not as essential, but as a minimum, I think if you've got aspirations to build anywhere near the physique I've got, or some of the grade A transformations you may have seen from my clients, then you need to be lifting at least 3 days a week. Any coach, trainer, so-called specialist who says otherwise is absolutely full of shit. I'm 40 now. I know what it takes to stay in shape every single year without question. And I've done the same with clients in their 40s, 50s and 60s. So if you can remotely mirror that from a training perspective, you won't go far wrong. Now, when it comes to food, all right, I don't follow a diet. I believe I paid my dues and developed so much expertise and experience when it comes to managing food that I don't need to follow a diet. I just have fundamental principles, as I'll share within a second. Because food is the number one challenge that every single client who ever joins Built to Last struggles with when it comes to walking around with a certain body fat they're happy with, energy, and ultimately the body they want to look at in the mirror and they want to carry around with themselves, okay? So how you manage your food is obviously fundamental. So what am I going to be doing with my food this year? Same as last year, okay? I might have some weeks, some months. Maybe if I randomly decide to do an even more specific performance-based goal at some point later in the year, that might change. But in relation to my current personal, professional, and social lifestyle and the way I want to look, the way I want to perform, and more importantly, what I'm willing to do and not willing to do, what works best for me is eating 2 bigger meals and having a high-protein shake across my day. It just works really, really well, okay? The only meal I will prep if I'm at home will be, and I have the time, I will make my first meal typically between 12 and 2. Sometimes it might be a fraction earlier than that, maybe 11, half 11, depending on my day if I'm up really early. But generally speaking, I'll have my first meal. That's the only meal I'll prep, and that might be something like porridge, fruit, eggs, something that's quick and easy to make. Occasionally, I'll have the shake, a protein shake, which again will be full of fruit, almond milk. But it'll be one of those two first thing, okay? But that's the only thing I prep. My time is too precious. I don't value the time of cooking. Not very good at it, if I'm honest. I choose not to be good at it because you'll be good at anything, really, you put your mind to. But I have no desire to waste time prepping food. I don't need to do it. I can pretty much eyeball calories now when I'm out or eating on the go. And this is what we teach our clients to do as well, because I've said this to a lot of newer clients that have recently joined, and obviously clients that have been with us a long time now. Over a 52-week period in a year, as a high-performer business leader who travels, goes on holidays, likes enjoying weekends, weekend away trips, staycations, etc., you're going to have so many weeks across your year that are going to be compromised where you can't follow the perfect meal plan. So you need to know what to do when you can't follow a meal plan, and guesstimating calories is something we teach our clients to do. And it's something over the years I've obviously got very good at, because I went through years of weighing my food. And the beauty of that, when you're disciplined with weighing your food and understanding food measurements and things like that, is when you're at a restaurant, you can pretty much guesstimate the weight of protein just by looking at a plate. You can guesstimate roughly how many calories, the carbs are on your plate, the fats, okay? So that's what I utilize within my food management strategy if I'm eating out. So, yeah, just getting back to the point, what do I do with my food? 2 bigger meals, 1 shake, and I outsource my evening meal. I cannot remember I cannot remember the last time I made my evening meal, whether I'm in Dubai, America, London, Coventry, it does not matter. I do not make my evening meal. I will either order in from Deliveroo, something that's tasty, meets my nutrition principles and targets, and saves me time. Simple as that. Even if I'm ordering off Deliveroo, which shocks a lot of people sometimes, especially here in Dubai, I do it in London actually as well. I just pick healthy food from Deliveroo. The word Deliveroo has a bit of a negative stigma attached when it comes to maybe unhealthy food, because obviously you can go on Deliveroo and you can order horrendously unhealthy food, which completely contradicts the health you're trying to live with. But you can also go on Deliveroo now, and there are loads of healthy food outlets and options you can choose if you choose to look for it. And again, this is another thing we teach our clients, is how to pick smart on Deliveroo. So they like what they're eating and they're saving time, of course. So that's what I'll do every single evening. And I may make the one other meal if I'm at home. And then even if I'm not at home, because I'm out all day, I would simply pick a similar meal at a restaurant, a cafe, or whatever my options were. I would pick a similar high protein, high quality meal. Okay. But I just wanted to summarize what are my actual principles, because I think whether you're going to follow a diet plan, outsource your food habits and guidelines, or track your calories, if you focus on these 5 principles, which are really important to me, not just this year, but every single year, and have kept me in shape all this time, you can't go far wrong. So my 5 principles. Number 1 is I'll eat high protein every day without question. The minimum amount of grams of protein I would eat per day is 160 grams of protein, and typically up to 180, absolute most 200 grams. I don't need more than that in relation to how I want to look or feel. I typically eat 1 gram of protein per 1 pound of my body weight every single day. Okay, that's going to keep me strong, keep my muscles, and yeah, as I say, it prevents me overeating shit. If you undereat protein, you're more likely to over snack, eat more carbs than you need, and basically crave the hyperpalatable foods. Number 2 is 90% of my food every single day, without question, would be non-processed. Why? The more processed food you eat, the worse you'll look. They don't fill you up. They affect your gut, your digestion, your mood, your energy, your focus. It's full of chemicals, can affect your concentration. So if you're trying to stay sharp as a businessman, which I am, and maintain energy every single day, then avoiding processed food is going to be key, all right? But 10% here and there. Now, what do I classify as processed food? Like, even bread for me, I would classify that as processed, you know? So even if I have wholemeal bread or some sourdough, it's still technically processed, all right? But I've got that little bit of buffer. It's not going to kill me having these things from time to time. Number 3 is no added sugar. That for me was a huge overall habit shift in 2022. I barely touched added sugar. I evaluate every single year, what do I need to do to be more effective this year? What do I need to do or do less of to make my job of being healthier, fitter, more energized in a given year? And for me, pretty much cutting out added sugar certainly does that. So no added sugar for me is at the heartbeat of my nutrition. So those 3 things I've said in particular, just these first 3 principles: eat high protein, aim for 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. Non-processed food makes up 90% of my overall food quantity, and no added sugar. If you did those 3 things, you cannot go wrong. Even if you couldn't be bothered to track your calories or care too much how much calories you eat. Like, I don't track the exact calories I eat, but if you operate with those 3 principles, high protein, non-processed food, and minimal added sugar, then by default you'll be controlling your calories anyway, and the quality of them, of course, too. Number 4, the principle. Number 4, my biggest meal is always in the evening. Why? Because that's when I like to mentally relax and eat more food. I might be a little bit stressed, I might be a little bit tired, mentally fatigued, emotionally fatigued. I might be, just had a harder day, and I want to eat more food because that's when willpower typically lowers. So I want to make sure I forward think that and always allow for more calories in my biggest meal in the evening. And what that also does, as I've said many, many times on these podcasts, it allows more buffer for calories for business meetings, social occasions with my partner, my friends, clients, etc. when I hook up with them. And again, it's more practical to my current lifestyle where I like to socialize a lot also, okay? And I strongly advise, if you like to do the same, manipulate your calories so you eat more food in the evening. The last one, this is more of a more of a mental approach when it comes to principles, but it helps me handle the habits and the inputs a lot more effectively when you have this in mind. Number 5 is virtually everything I eat digests well and helps me live with muscle, strength, and energy. So I'm yet to coach someone who doesn't want to operate with strength, lean muscle, and energy. So if you can have in the forefront of my mind, is the food that I'm about to put in my mouth helping me live with strength, muscle, and energy, you're just naturally going to control your habits and be more disciplined with your food management. All right? So, and of course, the obvious one, control your health. If you are thinking every single time I eat, is it helping me live with strength, lean muscle, and operate with energy, you're going to have a healthier year. All right? And if you don't want a healthy year, do the opposite. Okay? But just one thing I wanted to point out before I move on from food, I still eat out every single week. Even if I decided to do another shoot this year, which I may do at some point, I eat out every single week. I'm just more pinpoint with what I choose when I eat out. If I know I have something coming up and I want to look even sharper, for example, for a holiday or maybe a shoot or a special occasion where I want to be even more dialed in than I walk around, okay? So you don't have to compromise that if you operate with these principles and daily disciplines, basically, all right? And look, even though this is about my training and nutrition plan in 2023, I want to constantly draw attention to this and the importance of this if you want to be consistent with your training and nutrition plan. And what's going to help keep me consistent with my nutrition and my training adherence this year is sleep, right? So sleep for me, I'm going to aim minimum 7 hours every single night without question. Because when I sleep better, the things I've just emphasized about what I want to do with my nutrition and my training plan this year are more likely to happen if I respect my sleep. It's been the number one priority for me for the last 5 years, pretty much since I had a bicep rupture when I was neglecting my sleep. Sleep for me has been the one thing I always focus on, because when I sleep better, I train harder, I naturally move more, I eat better, or I don't have to think as much about staying disciplined with my food, because most people who overeat are tired, they're fatigued, so that negative and reactive state influences their decisions, especially when it comes to food, a lot more frequently. So for me, sleep 7 hours minimum, because that allows me to do things to do with training and nutrition a lot smoother and more consistently, all right? Okay, and then I wanted to share with you some things that I do not stress about, some daily non-negotiables, my mindset, and then some key questions to take us away, all right? So things I do not give a shit about. A lot of people are not where they want to be. They stress about things that do not matter. Unless you are trying to be a world-class bodybuilder, where perhaps certain things I'm about to cover are maybe a bit more important, don't sweat the small stuff. Ultimately, what's going to dictate how you look every single week and across this year is how consistently you train, how you manage food quantity and food quality week to week across a year, how you respect things like sleep, okay? But things I do not stress about, the days or times I train, it does not matter. Ideally, I like to train typically between 11 and 12, but sometimes I'll train first thing. I'm malleable with that. And again, the training time that I train has to complement that given day in terms of my priorities. When is going to be the most effective time for me to train in relation to my professional schedule, my personal schedule, time with friends, family, partner, etc. Right? But I do not care what days or times I train. Your brain and body cannot see whether it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And the reason a lot of business owners, entrepreneurs, very obsessive all in characters, aren't as consistent as myself and a lot of my clients is they have this rigid approach of this is my week, and if I can't do it exactly like that, I'm not going to do it at all because it's not the perfect week. It's bollocks, and you're going to line yourself up for inconsistency, okay? Maybe in your early 20s when you could have the perfect training week, you could operate with that, but you can have curveballs. Things crop up. Don't stress about the days or times you train. As long as you get it done across your week, it does not matter. Yes, some people, so-called gurus out there might go, oh yeah, but about optimizing recovery and all this stuff. Listen, you're going to have a best case scenario and a worst case scenario. If I had to train worst case 3 days back to back, or even 4 days back to back sometimes, I would just use common sense. So for example, if I had 3 days where I physically couldn't train because I'm on planes for longer flights, back to back, and I only had 4 days to get my weight sessions in, or 4 days to train, then I might just lower the intensity a little bit, lower the volume, but I'd still get it done, okay? So don't stress about these things. Another thing I don't stress about is what equipment I have available. This is why I'm a big advocate of simplifying, the structure of your workouts. Myself and my clients, we pretty much use dumbbells and barbells and a bench at most in all of our workouts. Why? Because if you go into a packed gym and there's kit absolutely everywhere, it can be overwhelming. And as I keep boring everyone to death with on these podcasts and my clients, the number one thing that's going to dictate how you look week to week, month to month is staying in the gym every week and getting your sessions done. So if you're overcomplicating workouts with 20 different pieces of kit, you're going to be frustrated because people are going to be on these pieces of equipment more often than not when you're in the gym, especially if you're trying to do things like superset and extended sets. So for me, I very much keep my workout structure of my routine very simple with free weights and bench. But even if I didn't have that available for whatever reason, I don't stress about it. I go, right, what method of load do I have available that's still going to allow me to hit all of my movement patterns within this given session, as in my push, my pull, my hip hinges, my squats. Like, for example, with our clients who they have ridiculous travel schedules. One of my clients, for example, is a world-leading content creator. He has frequent weeks where he doesn't have a gym available. So we make sure he takes bands and backpacks and we improvise. And again, it's that principle of doing, a slightly adapted version of the workout, maybe not with this heavier load, is better than doing nothing. Okay? You still can stimulate dramatically when you vary things like tempo and rep ranges and rest periods, okay? So I don't stress about what equipment is available. I look at what is the best method load I have available to achieve the best outcome and the best session today. Don't overcomplicate that. The next thing I don't stress about is the times I eat. I do not care. Ideal world, of course, you like to have a really specific structured routine, but again, it's not practical sometimes. If you have important meetings or you're on planes, again, family, partners, colleagues to think about, don't stress about the times you eat. I do not care. As long as I get my food in within a given day and the food is high quality, I do not care. Right? So I don't stress about the times I eat. The other thing I don't stress about, okay, is the pressure to eat or drink at social events, meetings, or whenever I'm with family and friends. So many clients prior to joining us bow to peer pressure, and we all know that a lot of your eating habits to date, the consistency of your eating, is going to be dictated by the environment and the people you surround yourself with. If you're surrounding yourself with people who are unhealthy, who eat shit, who eat more sugar, drink more, guess what? At some point, if you don't have structure and the mentality needed, you are going to conform to those eating habits and drinking habits too, okay? So I do not stress about what other people are doing. Of course, I will always try and make things work, so I'm not being that difficult person at a social occasion, but I will never, ever, ever, ever let someone else influence what I'm going to eat or drink unless I want to do that, okay? It just simply don't happen, because I've had clients before say, I went to my friend's restaurant and he wanted me to try this food. If you're going to be doing that, whether it's at a restaurant or a family or friend's house, all right, they want you to try some or eat something. They're doing that because they want to feel a certain emotion as a result of you doing what they want you to do. So they're doing it for their benefit and their pleasure. Of course, they want you to feel pleasure too, but if you're going to do that to fulfill their needs at the expense of how you're going to feel afterwards, and maybe the guilt you're going to feel afterwards, and the lack of energy perhaps you're going to feel afterwards, and by eating this food it contradicts your goals, then you're going to feel like shit. So be strong enough just to be very direct with people. I don't eat that. It contradicts my goals. I don't want to drink. I don't want to eat. It's not going to take away anything from the conversation you might have, with that person. Okay, so don't bow to peer pressure. By all means, if you want to give yourself permission to have drinks and, as I said, eat out regularly, things like that, that's totally cool, but make sure you've controlled the decision to do so. Okay, because there are going to be many, many times throughout the year you're going to be tested on with food and drink in particular. Okay, how you manage social occasions in particular is going to be the number one thing that's going to dictate the body you have or don't have across the year and at the end of the year. Okay, so do what you want to do, not what the people want to do. What are my daily non-negotiables? I broke it down to 4. My daily non-negotiables. Okay, no matter how busy I am, if I had a week from hell with deadlines and just thrown from pillar to post, number 1, I move my body every single day. I move my body every single day. There is no excuse why you can't move your body every day. No one is that busy they can't go for a walk. No one is that busy that they can't get their sessions in. No, get a session in, even if it's a short session. No one is that busy that they can't move their body for 20 minutes in a given day. I would really, really love to see anyone's calendar who challenges that. Okay, so my daily non-negotiables, move my body every day. Number 2, 90% high quality food. As I've just said, what do I mean by high quality food? Minimize processed food, avoid added sugar as much as I physically can. Number 3, sleep 7 hours. Number 4, weigh myself daily. This for me is a big one because it keeps me disciplined, because there are going to be some weeks you can't guesstimate your calories accurately or perfectly. Some weeks you can't follow the perfect meal plan. Some weeks that might be compromised, a heavy social calendar. But if you're weighing yourself daily or whenever you have scales available, it's going to keep you more disciplined. If you work backwards, think about this logically. If you want to be lean year round, which every single one of our clients do, and I'm sure if you listen to this podcast, you have aspirations to maybe do the same too, you're going to have some form of stat and measurement to, as a KPI to evaluate whether or not, you're hovering around the weight you need to walk around with. I'm sure you've done it in business. If you have financial targets, outcome-based financial targets, or growth just as a whole within your career, you are going to have some stats that you can measure week to week, month to month, that are going to tell you whether or not they're in line with the outcome that you want. It's no different with body. So I really, really encourage you, if you want to be lean, there's going to be a certain weight variation that's going to tell you whether or not you are lean. So by weighing myself every single day, it keeps me disciplined, and by weighing myself every day, it stops me going above my top end weight. And as I've said on a previous podcast, if I have a heavy social calendar, it gives me feedback. So say, for example, if I weigh myself on a Monday or a Tuesday and I maybe put on 5-6 pounds, which is totally doable if you've had a heavy social calendar, it just gives me that little sharp reminder, okay, cool, maybe I've overdone it, let's get back to basics. I might lower my calories for a few days, okay? So I really encourage you to weigh yourself every single day or whenever you have scales available if your goal is to be lean year-round and consistent year-round, okay? And then just coming to the end now, but for me, what's at the forefront of my consistency when it comes to my training plan, implementing consistency with my food, is discipline. It all starts with your mindset. If I was to evaluate the clients over the years that have got in phenomenal shape from those who didn't get in phenomenal shape or couldn't stay in phenomenal shape, it's mindset, it's discipline. There comes a point after a period of years that the excuses just don't cut the mustard. Yes, you will have weeks this year that are compromised and high stress and more to do. But generally speaking, over a calendar year, you've got enough time to get your shit together when it comes to consistency with your training, your food, right? So the key thing is discipline. Are you going to bullshit yourself that life got in the way again? I had a lot on, business pressures, all this stuff. Because guess what? You're going to fill your calendar up with more work tasks if that's your priority. You're going to fill your calendar up with loads of social calendar if that's what you want to do. And remember, your calendar is going to reveal where your priorities truly lie, not what you say they are, okay? So mindset and discipline has to be key. So there's 2 things that I do every single morning, okay? And these help influence the decisions to do the things I've said to do with training and nutrition. Number 1, I speak out loud every single morning my mission, vision, and purpose statement every single morning, right? So I'm reminding myself with that mission, vision, and purpose statement, how being healthier, fitter, confident, more energized, basically in shape, supports my mission, purpose, and values. Okay? So I encourage you to do the same. And then I have 3 success words. I remind myself every single morning, who do I need to be? Who am I at my best? My most confident, the best of who Kurt Miller is, right? Because when you really condition every single morning who you need to be, you're more likely to do the behaviors needed to become that person. So my 3 success words are world-class, consistent, and standards. When I'm looking myself in the mirror and reinforcing into my emotions and psyche that I want to be a world-class individual, I want to be consistent, and I want to operate with high standards, I'm not going to then say that and then follow that up with piss poor actions, piss poor eating decisions, skip the training sessions, skip the steps, cut corners on my sleep. So I really encourage you to have 3 success words that remind yourself of who you are at your absolute best, most disciplined, most confident, and basically the physical identity and the mental identity that you know you are at your best. Okay. Then, as always, I want to end with a couple of questions. I know I obviously seeding questions throughout these episodes, but 2 questions that I believe are going to help you implement your training sessions more consistently, and just be a better operator when it comes to your physical health. Number 1 is, how can I be better than the week before? So if you don't want to overcomplicate your training, your food, your movement, okay, because I've got some great episodes that go into great depth about that, and I've obviously just gone really pinpoint with my own personal week. But a simple question you can ask yourself at the end of each week: how can I be better than the week before? Look at your training from the week before. How can you train 5% better? Look at your food the week before. How can I eat 5% better? Look at your sleep. If that was a little bit sloppy, how can I make sure I sleep a little bit better, get to bed a bit earlier? Water. If that was the thing that you need to do better, how can I drink a little bit more water? How can I schedule more water into my week this week? And movement, steps. Look at my steps of last week. How can I walk 5% more? How can I walk 500 average daily steps more than I did last week? If you operate with simplicity every single day, every single week, the habits, the processes, the system, it's just naturally going to take you to the outcome that you're aspiring to. Or at least you're going to be in a better position than not asking yourself these things. Number 2. This is a pretty brutal question, but I think it's really powerful. Would my current training, nutrition, and lifestyle management inspire or uninspire the people in my life that look up to me most? Would my current training, nutrition, and lifestyle management inspire or uninspire the people in my life that look up to me most? Ask yourself that question and mark my words, right? You will be in that moment fully aware of the emotional consequences as a role model that you might be having on the people you love most, okay? Because so often we are more likely to implement more consistent habits and get our shit done if we remind ourselves of the people that are going to be affected by our behavior. And this might seem pretty cutthroat, but if you are listening to this and you're fat and you're overweight and you've got kids, there's a strong chance your eating habits at some point are going to rub off on your kid if they've not already, right? If you look at a lot of people walking around on this earth, right, that are overweight, I see it in shopping centres, I see it at restaurants, okay? And this is a massive problem, and I think it's a lack of responsibility from parents. I'm not lucky enough to be a parent yet, but I would be the example to my children. Even if they did grow up to be, overweight, at least I've been the best example I possibly could. But when I walk around in shopping centres and restaurants and I see overweight people and I see kids with them, so often these children, bless them, are starting to mirror the body shapes of their parents because they're copying their habits. Because remember this, if you're a great leader and a great role model, okay, and a parent, children seek love and connection of their parents more than any single people on the earth, more than their friends, more than anyone. So if you want your kids to grow up healthier, try and be the example. But ask yourself, are my actions and my current standards with training, food, and my just lifestyle management as a whole, are they inspirational or are they uninspiring? Okay, and if you feel in your heart that they're currently uninspiring, or you feel there was too many weeks last year that they were uninspiring, how can you correct that this year? And the quote I'm going to end with: taking care of your body is fundamental to success in life and goes far beyond just looking good. It's such a powerful quote. I can't remember where I first heard it, but it just really reminded me that, yes, of course, we want to look good, okay? I believe it's important for your confidence, but the benefits of looking after your body go far beyond, your physical shape. It really does impact mood, focus, energy, those you love most, and everything you do. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Love to hear your biggest takeaways, as always, and I'll see you next time.